Have you ever noticed how the 1960s were filled with cartoons that looked strangely familiar? Studios were racing to copy anything popular, from rock bands to superheroes to space explorers. Some copycats tried hard, some tried too hard, and some vanished almost as soon as they arrived. Hidden under the bright colors are stories of bold attempts that fell flat. Let's take a closer look at 15 cartoons that couldn't escape the shadows of the hits they followed. Number 15. Here Comes the Grump. 1969. A frantic chase cartoon set in a bright fantasy world should have been fun. Instead, it felt like a copy of better shows. Here Comes the Grump followed a boy named Terry who gets trapped in a magical kingdom ruled by an orange, constantly irritated villain. Every episode was built around the exact same pattern. Terry runs, the Grump chases him, something silly happens, and the chase restarts. The formula was familiar, because audiences had already seen it done in wacky races and other Hanna-Barbera-style shows, except those versions had fresher energy. The fantasy setting looked colorful and imaginative, but the pacing rarely offered surprises. The jokes leaned on repetition instead of clever twists, and characters never grew beyond simple traits. Kids who tuned in for adventure got a loop of similar scenes, while older viewers moved on quickly. The show wasn't mean-spirited or unpleasant, just predictable. It relied on noise, movement, and simple gags at a time when viewers were craving either stronger stories or sharper humor. As a result, it aired for a short run. Number 14. The Chattanooga Cats. 1969. A singing cartoon band with bright outfits seemed like an easy win. Too bad audiences already had the Archies. The Chattanooga Cats arrived during a wave of animated music groups, and it clearly wanted to follow the same formula. The show featured a band of cheerful, Southern-styled feline performers who introduced segments, sang pop tunes, and appeared in light adventure stories. The concept was colorful and friendly, but also familiar to the point of blending into the background. The biggest issue was identity. The show mixed music videos, comedy bits, and unrelated adventure segments as if unsure what it wanted to be. Kids who liked the songs were confused when the band suddenly vanished for side stories. Kids who liked stories found the musical interruptions distracting. Visually, the show tried to echo the psychedelic art of the late 1960s, but it never pushed far enough to create a memorable look. The humor was pleasant but mild, relying on simple slapstick rather than anything character-driven. With so many similar shows already on air, the Chattanooga Cats had difficulty standing out. Ratings never took off. The schedule shifted repeatedly, and the show soon disappeared. It remains a clear example of what happens when a cartoon chases a trend instead of leading one. Number 13. The Adventures of Gulliver. 1968. A famous novel, a brave young hero, and a world of tiny people should have created excitement. Instead, it felt like a softer copy of better adventure shows. The Adventures of Gulliver followed Gary Gulliver as he searched for his missing father in the land of the Lilliputians. The premise sounded promising, especially for fans who enjoyed the adventurous style of Jonny Quest. But where Jonny Quest felt bold and cinematic, Gulliver felt lighter, safer, and far more predictable. Each episode repeated a similar format. Gary encountered a problem, the tiny villagers helped, a larger enemy appeared, and Gary escaped with little variation. The world had charm, but the stories rarely offered tension or surprises. Kids who wanted real adventure quickly noticed the formula repeating. The animation was neat and dependable, but nothing stood out visually. The music reused the same patterns, making the episodes feel even more alike. Despite the potential of the source material, the show never took risks or explored deeper layers of fantasy. While younger children enjoyed the friendly tone, older viewers drifted toward more gripping choices. After a limited run, the show slid into reruns and faded away. The Adventures of Gulliver showed that even the strongest stories can fall flat if they don't evolve beyond their inspirations. Number 11. Cool. McCool. 1966. A stylish spy parody with a catchy theme song should have been cool. Instead, it slid into forgettable territory. Cool McCool appeared during the spy craze of the 1960s, when secret agents were everywhere. The show introduced a cheerful but clumsy detective who wanted to save the day, but often caused more trouble than the villains. The theme song was memorable, but the episodes repeated the same pattern too often. The main issue was character depth. Cool McCool depended entirely on the hero messing up his missions, which became predictable fast. Instead of humor growing from clever writing or smart timing, it leaned on repeated slip-ups and misunderstandings. Younger kids enjoyed the bright colors, but older viewers expected sharper comedy. The villains looked fun, but were rarely given personality or backstory. Many episodes drifted slowly because scenes felt padded with unnecessary animation loops. Compared to other spy-inspired cartoons, this one lacked spark and energy. Cool McCool aired briefly, gained modest recognition for its theme, then faded from schedules. It wanted to join the wave of spy entertainment, but ended up proving that confidence alone cannot carry a show. Number 10. The Tom Foolery Show, 1965. A cartoon built on poems, riddles, and nonsense humor sounds creative, but only if the audience understands the joke. The Tom Foolery Show arrived with the goal of turning the writings of Lewis Carroll and Edward Lear into a lively animated experience. It featured bright colors, whimsical characters, and playful word-bending moments that aimed to stand apart from other cartoons. The idea was interesting, but the execution made it hard for kids to follow. Instead of clear stories, the show bounced from one odd sketch to another. Scenes felt disconnected, and the humor often drifted into gentle confusion rather than quick laughs. Kids expecting adventure or simple punchlines ended up watching dancing objects or characters spouting puzzling lines. Even adults found it quirky, in a way that did not always land. The pacing was slow, the jokes rarely built momentum, and the segments never came together as a unified episode. Competing cartoons offered faster humor and clearer stories, so younger viewers drifted away almost immediately. The Tom Foolery Show wasn't unpleasant. It was simply out of sync with what kids wanted at the time. It tried to be artistic and clever, but without strong structure, even its creativity couldn't keep it from fading. Number 9. The Abbott and Costello Cartoon, 1967. Turning a legendary comedy duo into animation seemed like a smart idea, until the magic disappeared on screen. The Abbott and Costello cartoon attempted to bring the pair's classic routines to a younger audience. The voices tried to mimic the original performers, and the episodes reused some of their well-known skits. But without real facial expressions, body, movement, and timing, the routines lost the charm that made the duo iconic. The animation of the late 1960s was simple, which made it hard to capture subtle comedic rhythm. Scenes often felt stiff, with characters talking in place while the background stayed still. Kids who had never seen the original duo didn't understand why these moments were supposed to be funny. Adults felt the charm had been drained away. The writing leaned on gentle, predictable jokes instead of fresh ideas. Episodes repeated familiar situations without building new humor around them. As a result, the show felt like an echo of something great rather than a great cartoon of its own. It aired briefly, never reached strong ratings, and disappeared quietly. The Abbott and Costello cartoon proved that some comedy relies on real human timing, something animation can't always recreate. Number 8. Young Samson and Goliath, 1967. A boy hero transforming into a powerful figure should spark excitement, but repetition quickly dimmed the shine. Young Samson and Goliath followed a teenager named Samson and his dog Goliath as they traveled through distant lands, facing unusual threats. With a shout, both transformed into stronger versions of themselves, a moment meant to thrill viewers. It worked at first, but the show relied on the same transformation and episode structure almost every time. Samson would face danger, transform, solve the issue with strength, and return safely. The landscapes looked interesting, and the creatures they met were imaginative, but the stories didn't explore anything deeper. Older kids soon realized they were watching the same rhythm every week. The pacing was gentle, the animation simple, and the villains rarely memorable. It lacked the layered adventure style of shows like Johnny Quest or the dramatic tension that other cartoon heroes offered. The formula stayed safe instead of being bold. The show did appeal to younger viewers who enjoyed the action moment, but it didn't have enough variety to hold long-term attention. After a short run, it faded quietly. Young Samson and Goliath proved that even a powerful idea needs fresh twists to stay exciting. Number 7. The Super Six, 1966. A heroic team with costumes, colorful powers, and cheerful music looked promising, but it never built true momentum. The Super Six arrived during a surge of superhero enthusiasm. With caped characters becoming household names, the idea of a playful hero squad seemed like a perfect fit. Each member had a fun design and a simple personality that matched the show's light tone. But the stories rarely rose above mild comedy. Missions were short, predictable, and aimed only at very young viewers. Older kids who enjoyed comic-style action found the adventures too soft and the jokes too gentle. Instead of exciting battles or clever humor, the show delivered small skits that ended before building tension. The animation was bright, but lacked the strong visual style of competing superhero cartoons. Scenes often felt loosely connected, giving episodes a patchwork feeling. None of the characters stood out enough to become favorites. Meanwhile, other shows were offering more thrilling plots, sharper pacing, and stronger character moments. The Super Six simply didn't have enough weight to compete. It ended with little buzz and slipped out of the lineup. While cheerful and harmless, it never rose above being a simple attempt to follow a trend. Number 6. The Laurel and Hardy cartoon, 1966. Beloved performers known for expressive humor became stiff animated figures that couldn't capture what made them special. The Laurel and Hardy cartoon tried to recreate the famous duo's gentle comedy for a new generation. Their routines in the silent era depended on slow reactions, eye glances, and perfectly timed gestures. Limited animation could not match those details. Episodes often involved small errands, simple mishaps, and harmless misunderstandings, but the pacing felt slow. Characters talked more than they moved, which weakened the visual style essential to their original humor. Kids expecting lively slapstick didn't connect with the toned-down approach, and adults felt the warmth of the originals didn't transfer. The animation style looked friendly, but it couldn't convey the nuance that made the duo legendary. Without expressive faces or real-time timing, their classic charm disappeared. The show aired briefly and soon faded. It remains a gentle reminder that not every beloved act can be transferred into animation without losing something important. Number 5. The Impossibles, 1966. A rock band that transforms into superheroes sounds exciting, but this show never rose above its own gimmick. The Impossibles followed 3 musicians who turned into a superhero team whenever danger appeared. The idea clearly tried to merge 2 popular trends of the era: pop groups and comic-style action. The setup looked clever, but the stories followed the same structure in nearly every episode. The heroes had fun powers, but the show rarely explored them in interesting ways. Instead, they entered a scene, used their abilities quickly, and solved the problem before any real tension developed. The villains were colorful but lacked personality, and the plots moved in safe, predictable loops. The musical aspect also felt underused. Instead of blending music into the story, the band element acted more like a decorative label. In an era filled with creative hero concepts, The Impossibles never gave viewers something they had not already seen. Kids enjoyed the bright costumes and upbeat music, but the lightweight storytelling made it hard for older viewers to stay interested. It simply didn't stand out against stronger superhero cartoons. After a short run, it faded from schedules and became one of those shows remembered more for its concept than its impact. The Impossibles proved that style alone is never enough to keep a series memorable. Number 4. Space Cadets, 1966. Tiny astronauts exploring space should offer endless fun, but without strong ideas, the show drifted like a lost satellite. Space Cadets featured a small group of young space explorers traveling with their dog in a futuristic setting. It clearly wanted to tap into the growing fascination with space travel during the 1960s, especially with shows like The Jetsons already setting the tone. Instead of big adventure, however, viewers got gentle stories that rarely reached beyond simple hijinks. The characters were cute, but the show relied heavily on the same light gags. Many episodes involved the group getting into mild trouble with a villain named Captain Skyhook, whose attempts to steal their treasure map often ended in predictable ways. The humor was soft, the pacing slow, and the stakes low. The animation style looked cheerful, but the worlds they visited all felt similar. Without variety or depth, the space setting became more of a backdrop than an actual storytelling tool. Younger kids liked the friendly tone, but older kids moved on to shows with more action and imagination. Space Cadets didn't fail because it was bad. It failed because it played things too safe during a time when space-themed entertainment was becoming bolder. It quietly vanished from schedules and became a forgotten attempt to capture a growing trend. Number 3. The Mighty Heroes, 1966. A superhero parody with exaggerated characters should be hilarious, but this team never found the right rhythm. The Mighty Heroes featured 5 heroes with silly powers and playful personalities. The show tried to mix gentle comedy with superhero action, hoping to attract fans of both. But the humor focused mostly on clumsy teamwork and exaggerated mishaps, which became predictable quickly. Episodes followed a similar pattern. A villain appeared. The heroes bungled the early attempt to stop them, and then somehow pulled everything together at the last minute. It had charm, but the jokes were repeated so often that the comedy lost energy. Younger kids liked the playful designs, but viewers wanting sharper humor or stronger stories felt let down. The animation was bright and cheerful, but scenes often reused movements to save time, which made the action feel slow. The characters also blended together because none of them had distinct personalities beyond their funny powers. The show wasn't disliked. It simply didn't offer enough variety to stand out among the many superhero-themed cartoons airing at the time. As competition increased, the Mighty Heroes faded quietly into reruns. It remains a reminder that even parody needs more than a single joke to leave an impression. Number 2. The New Three Stooges, 1965. Turning slapstick legends into animation sounded like a guaranteed hit, but the spark that made them iconic never carried over. The New Three Stooges tried to bring the trio's classic humor to younger viewers. Their original live-action routines relied on timing, expression, and physical movement. The animated versions, however, could not recreate that style. Limited animation made the humor feel slow and restrained, losing the quick charm of the original act. Episodes often followed simple plots where the trio took a job, made a mistake, and ended in a mild mess. The structure felt repetitive, and the jokes leaned on gentle mishaps instead of real comedic creativity. Without the real-life timing and energy of the actors, the routines lacked impact. Although the series included short live-action introductions, these weren't enough to save the animated segments from feeling flat. Kids expecting lively chaos didn't find it here, and adults familiar with the originals noticed the missing spark immediately. As stronger cartoons filled the schedule, the New Three Stooges faded. It remains an example of how animated versions of beloved performers must add something new rather than simply copying the past. The show wasn't badly made. It just couldn't capture the energy that made the original trio memorable. Number 1. The Beagles, 1966. A musical cartoon inspired by the massive popularity of bands from the 1960s seemed like a sure success. Instead, it barely made a ripple. The Beagles followed a canine pop duo clearly modeled after the famous music craze of the era. With matching outfits, catchy tunes, and cheerful banter, the show attempted to blend comedy and music in a way that would attract fans of animated bands. But the idea felt too familiar, and the execution didn't bring anything new. The music was pleasant, but it lacked the memorable style of other animated groups. Episodes featured light adventures that often revolved around simple misunderstandings or harmless mix-ups. The humor was gentle, and the pacing moved slowly, making it hard for older kids to stay engaged. The animation style was bright, but not distinctive, and the characters never developed personalities strong enough to stand out. It was clear the show was riding a trend rather than shaping one. The Beagles aired for a short time before disappearing quietly. Even though the concept had potential, it never built the energy or uniqueness needed to survive in a crowded field of music-themed cartoons. It remains a forgotten footnote from a decade full of more successful animated experiments. Looking back, it's clear that the 1960s were packed with ambition, imitation, and a whole lot of trial and error. Some shows came close, others barely lifted off the ground. But each one tells us something about how quickly trends can rise and fall. Which cartoon do you think deserved a second chance? Let me know, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into forgotten animation history.